They say manners cost nothing, but for Meghan Markle, they seem to be a luxury item she just can't budget for. From physically shoving guests on stage to laughing during solemn anthems, we are about to unpack the most cringe-inducing, jaw-dropping displays of rudeness ever caught on camera. Before we dive into this masterclass of bad behavior, do me a favor and subscribe to the Star Report. We are spilling fresh hot tea every day, and trust me, you don't want to miss a single drop of this one. The elbow of authority. We have to kick things off with a moment that is so physically uncomfortable, it practically requires a trigger warning for second-hand embarrassment. We are taking it back to the Hamilton charity performance in London. This was supposed to be a classy evening, celebrating the arts, with Prince Harry and the cast of the show soaking up the applause. But Meghan, as we have come to learn, has a gravitational pull that requires her to be the absolute center of any solar system she enters. As the group gathered for the official photo, the cast and crew were arranging themselves around the royals. It was a crowded stage, sure, but there is a difference between finding your spot and physically displacing another human being like you are fighting for a rebound in the NBA. The footage captures Meghan using a sharp, tactical elbow to nudge a man out of her way. Did you see that? That wasn't a gentle, "excuse me." That was a body check. She didn't even look at him. She just deployed the elbow, cleared the lane, and planted herself front and center with that frozen, camera-ready smile plastered on her face. The poor man looked completely startled, shuffling aside as if he had just been reprimanded by a schoolteacher. It perfectly encapsulates her approach to royal life. Get out of the way or get moved. It wasn't about the charity or the cast. It was about ensuring that when the flashbulbs went off, nothing obstructed the view of the Duchess. The stage crasher. If you thought the Hamilton shove was bad, the British Fashion Awards incident was a full-blown hostile takeover. This event is a prestigious night for the fashion industry, meticulously scripted and timed. Rosamund Pike was there to present the award to Claire Waite-Keller, the designer of Meghan's wedding dress. It should have been a straightforward handover. But according to multiple witnesses and the very confused vibe on stage, Meghan decided to turn this into a surprise cameo. She didn't just walk out. She swept in like she was accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award. The script reportedly had Rosamund Pike handling the duties, but Meghan inserted herself into the proceedings with the confidence of someone who owns the building. The awkwardness between her and Rosamund Pike was palpable. You could see Rosamund stepping back, looking unsure of whether she was supposed to leave or curtsy. Meghan just breezed past her, grabbed the microphone, and launched into a monologue. It was a classic case of main character syndrome. She turned a celebration of a designer's work into the Meghan show, leaving the actual presenters looking like background extras in their own industry's biggest night. It is rare to see Hollywood A-listers look that flustered, but Meghan's ability to hijack a spotlight is truly a force of nature. The trophy tug of war. Now, let's talk about the sport of kings, which Meghan apparently thinks is the sport of "look at me." We have seen her crash podiums before, but the incident in Florida after Harry's team won a polo match was a masterclass in territorial aggression. As the team gathered to hoist the trophy, a moment that traditionally belongs to the captain and the players, Meghan was right there in the scrum. She wasn't just standing nearby, she was actively reaching for the trophy box. There is this excruciating moment where she puts her hand on the box, trying to take possession of it, and the player holding it, who actually played in the game, politely but firmly holds onto it. He refuses to let go. The result is this cringe-inducing dance where Meghan has to awkwardly duck under the player's raised arms to find a spot in the center. She essentially limboed her way into the winning shot. It was desperate. She had absolutely no reason to be holding that trophy or even standing in the middle of the team photo. It would be like a chaotic fan rushing the field at the Super Bowl and trying to hoist the Lombardi trophy because their husband is the quarterback. It showed a complete lack of understanding of sportsmanship and boundaries. She just couldn't bear the thought of a photo existing where she wasn't the focal point. The Centabale Shuffle. Staying on the polo field, we have the infamous incident with Dr. Sophie Chandauka. This one is even more egregious because of who Dr. Sophie is, the chairwoman of Centabale, Harry's own charity. She is a highly respected professional, essentially the boss of the event. But to Meghan, she was just an obstacle in the way of the perfect shot. In the clip, you can see Meghan directing Dr. Sophie to move. She gestures for her to shuffle away from Harry's side so that Meghan can stand next to him. She didn't want the charity chairwoman standing next to the charity founder. She wanted the power couple shot. Dr. Sophie looked visibly uncomfortable, having to shimmy around the trophy and the other players to accommodate Meghan's stage direction. It was demeaning. Here is a woman who has dedicated her time and energy to the cause, being treated like a prop that was ruining the aesthetic. It wasn't about celebrating the charity's success. It was about curating the visual brand of the Sussexes. Meghan physically orchestrating the lineup to ensure she was the rose between the thorns is a level of micromanagement that screams insecurity. The Wimbledon clear-out. Speaking of treating people like props, let's revisit the Wimbledon disaster. Wimbledon is a public event. People queue for hours, pay good money, and squeeze into those seats to watch tennis. But when Meghan attended to support Serena Williams, she apparently decided that the public part of the event didn't apply to her. Her security team began clearing the seats around her, creating a bizarre no-entry zone in the middle of a packed stadium. It looked ridiculous, a ring of empty green seats surrounding the Duchess like a force field of pretension. But it got worse. A man was scolded by her security for taking a photo in her direction. The kicker? He wasn't even taking a photo of her. He was taking a selfie with the court in the background. The arrogance of assuming that everyone with a smartphone is obsessed with you is staggering. She treated Wimbledon like it was her private backyard, alienating fans and turning a fun day of sport into a PR nightmare. It is this kind of behavior that earned her the Duchess Difficult moniker. You cannot go to one of the most televised public events in the world and then demand privacy while sitting in the royal box. It is an oxymoron, wrapped in a designer blazer. The Paris Fashion Week snicker. From the tennis court to the runway, Meghan's lack of decorum seems to be a travel companion she brings everywhere. During her appearance at Paris Fashion Week, she was seated in the front row, prime real estate for fashion royalty. During the show, a model stumbled on the runway. It is a nightmare moment for any model, a professional hiccup that usually elicits gasps of sympathy or polite silence from the audience, not from Meghan. The camera caught her giggling. She actually covered her mouth and laughed, then turned to the person next to her, expecting them to join in on the joke. The person next to her, however, had some class. He kept a straight face, refusing to mock the struggling model. You can see Meghan's smile drop instantly when she realizes she is laughing alone. It was a Mean Girls moment caught in 4K. It showed a lack of empathy that is startling for someone who brands herself as a humanitarian. Laughing at someone else's misfortune, especially when they are doing their job, is just low. It reinforced the idea that her polished exterior hides a rather judgmental interior. The Sussex smackdown. For a woman who claims to want to move on from the royal family, she certainly clings to the titles with a vice-like grip. This was made painfully clear during an interaction with Mindy Kaling. Whether this was for the podcast or a behind-the-scenes moment, the audio is telling. Mindy, trying to be relatable and funny, mentioned that nobody would expect Meghan Markle to eat at Jack in the Box. It was a harmless comment, using the name the entire world knows her by. But Meghan couldn't let it slide. She immediately corrected her, and the tone was icy.
Everyone in the world knows that Meghan Markle has eaten Jack in the Box and loves it.
It's so funny, too, that you keep saying Meghan Markle. You know I'm Sussex now. You have kids, and you go, no, I share my name with my children.
It's funny you keep saying Meghan Markle. I'm Sussex now. The pretension is off the charts. It wasn't a friendly correction. It was a slap on the wrist. She framed it as sharing a name with my children. But let's be real, it was about status. She was reminding a Hollywood A-lister that she outranks her. It sucked all the air out of the room. Mindy Kaling is comedy royalty, and Meghan treated her like a peasant who forgot to bow. It shows just how much her identity is wrapped up in the very institution she claims to hate. The anthem smirk. Respect is a currency Meghan seems to be perpetually short on, especially when cameras are rolling on solemn moments. At a Vancouver Canucks hockey game, during the Autism Acceptance Night, singer Mariah Wright Meyer was performing the national anthem. It was a beautiful, serious moment. The camera panned to the royal box, and while Harry stood there looking solemn and respectful, Meghan was seen smiling and even letting out a laugh. It was completely tone-deaf. The anthem is not a time for giggles, especially at an event dedicated to neurodiversity awareness. It looked dismissive, as if she couldn't be bothered to feign interest in the tradition of the country she was visiting. It is moments like these that alienate the public. It signals that she thinks she is above the rules, above the customs, and that everything is just a backdrop for her own personal amusement. Harry looked like he wanted to disappear, standing next to someone who seemingly treats a national anthem like a commercial break. The Invictus flirt. The Invictus Games are supposed to be about the veterans, their resilience, and their stories. But at one event, the focus shifted to Meghan's bizarre interaction with the husband of the Colombian vice president. The footage shows Meghan getting incredibly close, engaging in what many described as flirtatious body language. She was rubbing his back, leaning in, and smiling with an intensity that felt inappropriate for a diplomatic meeting. The vice president herself seemed to notice, turning around with a look that said, "Excuse me?" It got so tense that Harry actually stepped in. You can see him physically move between them, raising his hands in a gesture that looked like he was trying to defuse a bomb. It was messy. Whether she was actually flirting or just overdoing the warm American act, it crossed a line. You do not paw at the spouse of a high-ranking political figure. It nearly caused a diplomatic incident and made Harry look like a bodyguard trying to keep his wife from causing chaos. The support group hijack. One of the most egregious examples of her me-first attitude happened in South Africa at a Mothers to Mothers event. This was an HIV support group. A woman was sharing a harrowing, deeply personal story about being forced into an arranged marriage and discovering her HIV status during pregnancy. It was a moment that demanded silence, respect, and active listening. Meghan, however, decided that the story had gone on long enough. She interrupted the woman mid-sentence. She cut her off to suggest they all sit on the floor for a photo. Imagine the audacity. A woman is pouring her heart out about trauma, and Meghan is thinking about the optics of a group picture. She breezed past the interruption with a quick, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and then immediately started directing the photo op. It was heartless. It showed that she viewed these women not as individuals with stories, but as props for her compassionate royal persona. The floor-sitting mandate. And speaking of that floor-sitting moment, let's dig deeper into why that was so rude. At the same Mothers to Mothers event, Meghan insisted that everyone sit on the floor with her. She framed it as being equal, saying that if Archie were there, he would be on the floor. But here is the cultural context she ignored. In many of these communities, sitting on the floor is associated with mourning or lower status. Also, many of the women were wearing dresses and skirts that were not designed for sitting cross-legged on the ground. You can see the discomfort on their faces. They didn't want to sit on the floor. They were dressed up for a special occasion to meet a duchess, and she forced them down to the ground to suit her whimsical narrative of being down to earth. It wasn't egalitarian, it was controlling. She imposed her Western, performative idea of community onto a culture she clearly hadn't bothered to research. It was performative humility that actually ended up humiliating her hosts. The Rwanda gaze. This pattern of treating locals like background noise goes back years. Footage from her 2016 World Vision trip to Rwanda tells a similar story. Meghan loves to talk about her humanitarian work, but the video shows a different reality. She is seen standing among a group of children, and her expression is one of utter boredom. She looks impatient, checking her surroundings with a tight jaw and narrowed eyes. She doesn't look like she is connecting with the kids. She looks like she is waiting for the director to yell, "Cut!" so she can go back to her trailer. For someone who brands herself as a hugger and a mom, her body language was cold and distant. It reinforces the criticism that her charity work is more about the photo op than the actual people. The children were just set dressing for her compassionate celebrity reel. It is a stark contrast to the way Diana or even Harry naturally interact with kids. With Meghan, there is always a sense that she is performing a role, and in Rwanda, she clearly got tired of the character. The Doria death stare. You would think that her own mother would be safe from the wrath, but you would be wrong. During a speaking engagement where Doria Ragland joined her on stage, Doria dared to chime in while Meghan was holding court. The reaction was instantaneous and chilling. Meghan snapped her head around, eyes wide, with a frozen half-smile that didn't hide the fury underneath. It was the death stare. It was a look that said, "How dare you interrupt me?" Doria immediately clammed up, looking visibly shaken. It was a rare glimpse into the dynamic behind closed doors. If she treats her own mother, her biggest ally, with that kind of visible contempt for a minor interruption, imagine how she treats the staff? It stripped away the sweet, supportive daughter narrative in a split second. The birthday tongue. Finally, we have the moment that reportedly got them kicked out of Prince Charles's 70th birthday party. It was a garden party, a formal affair celebrating the future king. Meghan was reportedly heard complaining that she was bored. But it wasn't just words, it was the behavior. While walking behind Camilla and Charles, Meghan was caught on camera pulling a face and sticking her tongue out. Yes, a grown woman, a duchess, sticking her tongue out at her father-in-law's birthday party like a petulant teenager. Moments later, Harry was whispered to by an aide, and they were escorted to their car. They were effectively asked to leave. King Charles had reached his limit. It was the ultimate display of disrespect. She was a guest in their home, at a milestone celebration, and she couldn't maintain basic decorum for a few hours. It was the behavior of someone who thinks the rules simply don't apply to them, and for once, she faced a consequence. The Invictus red carpet walk. And now, the moment that turned a veterans' march into a fashion show. At the Invictus Games, an event dedicated to wounded warriors, Meghan decided to lead the procession. She walked ahead of the veterans, beaming and waving as if she were on the red carpet at the Met Gala. The veterans walked solemnly behind her. It was jarring. The focus should have been entirely on them. She was supposed to be the support act, not the headliner. She treated the path like a runway, glancing around for cameras, soaking up the attention, while the actual heroes were relegated to her background dancers. It was tonally disastrous. It summed up the fundamental problem with her approach to public life. She cannot conceive of a world where she is not the most important person in the room. From interrupting victims to elbowing actors, the evidence is piled high. It's a pattern of behavior that goes beyond simple mistakes. It's a lifestyle of entitlement. What do you think was the rudest moment of them all? Was it the tongue out at Charles or the laugh at the anthem? Let me know in the comments. And seriously, if you haven't subscribed to the Star Report yet, do it now. We have so much more to cover.